Our next presenters, I don't even know where to start. They are a couple of Dominican, born and raised in Dominica, who now live and study in Toronto, Canada, at the University of York, specifically. They will present do a joint presentation on what you see there as the technopolitics of the nature island, the world. And as you see, there's Henry coming from where he has come from in the beginning. And we have the present, the technology. And I know when everybody saw technopolitics, they say, there goes IP again, with that politics thing. Well, it's just a word. I don't call what I do politics. I call what I do my life. I live. So, Albert Bannis is an honors BA double major, has an honors BA double major in Women and Cultural Studies. He has a master's of social and political thought, and his major area of research is the socio-economic and cultural and political impact of cell phone technology due to deregulation of the telecommunications industry in the small island state of the Commonwealth of Dominica. He is presently a PhD candidate in social and political thought at York University, and there his major research is mapping of the causalities of mobile technology in small island states through the lens of technopolitics. So that's his words, not mine. I apologize to Brenda, Mrs. Bannis, for actually introducing Albert before her. In the tradition, the ladies usually go first. They usually get first credit. And I do apologize, Brenda.
No, that's fine. We are one.
Brenda Bannis is an honors BA, Bachelor of Arts, has an honors Bachelor of Arts, summa cum laude, a double major in Women and Cultural Studies at York University. She has a master's with a double major in Communication and Culture. Sorry if I don't seem to be, it's heavier.
It's early.
Doing a joint program at York and Ryerson Universities. And the thesis is what caught my attention and maybe helped me to persevere over the last 2 weeks, because I just couldn't get it out of my head. Her thesis is something called, could net help reclaim community? Could net, let's forget about the net. Could is what got me. Could comes from kudme, kudmetics, and I am sure what she's going to present will provide the tools to help realize and help us realize that we can become the nature island of the world, a true icon, even using technology. Without further ado, I will invite Albert and Brenda to give you their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, everyone. I must say, IP mentioned the word politics, and because we have politics in front of our title in terms of technopoliticians, it comes from really the fact that I'm coming from a School of Women's Studies, and the mantra from the School of Women's Studies is that the person is political. So again, good day everyone, and thanks for being here. Henry has, just as we have all seen, given us a very stimulating presentation and the fury behind the big idea in rebranding the Commonwealth of Dominica as the nature island of the world. We see that it's very important right now, after 40 years. We need, I would say, an interjection to Independence 2.0. My wife and I are very elated to be back home. And it's amazing to be back home. Really amazing to see the love and appreciation and the blessings and kindness of people during these trying times. And my mom, Mrs. Lucy Bannis, sends her love, as the rest of my family and Brenda families as well. Because it's amazing, it's real amazing to be at home. It's challenging, yes, but it's amazing. So we're back home and to share our knowledge and insights that we have acquired in our journey through a joint presentation we have decided to contribute to this inaugural conference, and like most Dominicans, we envision a future of unlimited possibilities in the rebranding of the Commonwealth of Dominica as the nature isle of the world, which we call for now going forward just now. We are calling that as an act of urgency, a time for us to act and embrace something for once, because there's something beating on the temples of our heart, and it's been beating for way too long. So we say now is the time to act. And we have always done everything with God at the helm, and see this opportunity as a continuum of these contributions. And one of the things we must be mindful of when dealing with nature, that technology acts as the medium for us to interact with nature. So one way that we interact with nature is with technology. So human beings, by extension, are tool-bearing entities. Thus, our survivability and upward mobility depends on our interactions with things. Ian Howder states that the social world of humans and material world of things are entangled together by dependencies that create potential future investments and entrapments. These entrapments is also caused by how we value things, and its practicals includes debt, duties, obligations, values in which those are embedded. Therefore, I think our interaction with nature in rebranding the COD to now forces a dynamic process in the subjectivity whereby the survivability of the object and oneself are interdependent on the mutual obligation of each other. So we see that we are in an entrapment with things in our pursuit to unravel the complication and to meet our demands through nature. So this entrapment, think of it as you have a car. A car is nothing without the debt that is involved with it. You are duty bound and obliged to take care of that car if you want to drive that car. You have to buy tires, gas. So anything, any inanimated thing that you will get yourself involved with, just remember there is a form of entrapment. So this academic presentation is a theoretical and practical map that strives to examine independence 2.0. So like I said, we're looking at this as an upgrade. From the implication of cultural and socioeconomical perspective, through the insights of technopolitics and codnetics, which Brenda will give some more insight about. It will expand on the challenges and implications of the rebranding of the COD to now with the use of technology. Now, when I talk about technopolitics, I'm using pretty much the notion by Professor Shannon Bell as a thread that links political philosophers and social theorists in a convergence with the belief that technology, keyword there, that technology alters existence in terms of self, order, agency, consciousness, intimacy, intelligence, reason, life, embodiment, identity, and gender. In terms of always just mentioning with technology, I think we need to flush out what we are talking about. There's many definitions and interpretations of technology, but I tend to like Luis Suarez Villa interpretation of technology. He says that technology is a result of human action and decisions. Very important to keep that in mind. A result of human action and decisions. And those decisions have social, political, and economic dimensions and are therefore not purely technical or indifferent to society. Therefore, technology is subject to intervention which affects and is affected by both functional and cultural influences. So, in a nutshell, technology is not fixed to some gadgetry. In other words, you, me, are technological. Culture is technology, by extension. And as Michael Marshall McLuhan would say, technology is an extension of us, in a way, our second skin. So, you know, in terms of our methodology, one of the things we were trying to not present is to give the idea that technology determines who we are. This should be technological, include the insights that we are technologically determined. So to avoid, or in order to avoid that argument, that technologically determined presentation, we have incorporated a domesticated perspective which Rich Ling describes as a negotiation between the technical and the social determinism, which at the same time try to evade the constriction of affordance. In addition, the domestic perspective, according to Ling, assumes that we arrange our lives and define ourselves vis-a-vis technical objects, and that technical devices have consequences for the arrangement of our everyday lives. Affordance is really a technology that allows the restriction on meaning and use and the potential for action. So, like I said, the complexity of nature. Nature is so complex in its simplicity that I'm proposing that no one particular theory can hold. So what we will try to do is present a multidisciplinary approach using social theory to tackle that quest. So if we take a panoramic view of technology as a transforming entity, then one can see the forces that uses technology to shape not just our society, but also our humanity. But we must be cautious in the use of technology, because there is always embedded in any form of technology some unintended consequences. Steve Matthewman claims that theories like maps can be paradoxical. They can be seen as works of distortion, since they reduce the three-dimensional world to two, and maps can sometimes lose meaning of their intent. Why? In scaling down the world, maps may require to concentrate on particular places, which could sometimes fortify focusing on other essential areas. So with the map and scaling down the world, we may want to focus on the land and not what's beneath the land, or the sea and not what's beneath the sea and in the water, or vice versa. In the way we want, it tends to give us a pinpoint direction. In relation to the COD in rebranding as now, we must be mindful of the unintended consequences. So while there are several ways of getting there, we must also recognize there will be impediments along that journey. Janice Jansen informs us that while technology promises much, it has many unintended consequences, as the relationships between technological innovation and mundane use has resulted in social exploitation that is different, since new behaviors, attitudes, and values emerges from technological habits. And as my focus is on the use of mobile technology in Dominica, we can see that the more those technology is used, that type of technology on island, we are seeing new habits and behaviors on island. Not just to blame the technology per se, but we could say that it is contributing to new forms of subjectivity on the island of Dominica. Also, our quest to use theory to gain insight into our social world, we can sometimes find ourselves within a mirage, as theory has the power to distract, reveal, conceal, and inspire knowledge. And like maps, they can sometimes leave us stranded at dead ends, going in circles, or even in a quagmire. Now I want to regress a little bit, because we've been just calling out names, name. For instance, Dominica, we have gone from Whitey Kubuli to Dominica, get independence. We say, well, okay, we're the Commonwealth of Dominica, and now we are still proposing a transformation to rebrand it to the Nature Isle of the World. So what is in a name? To some, it is nothing. To others, it is everything, or even something that is in between everything and nothing. However, whatever it is, it remains just a name with its own agency, and in our case, it is now the nature isle of the world. There is always something within this equation. When people know things and others by a name, there is a form of sentimental attachment, but also caution and resistance. The COD has always been referred to as a nature isle, which gives us a starting point. But that nature isle has always been a nickname. We want it to be the name right now. So the more we know the names of our ancestors, brothers, sisters, neighbors, communities, traditions, etc., the better we are able to express our love and devotion for worship and a welcoming community where we are all equal but different based on the virtuous principles of nature. Through those principles, we are stronger for the encounters of the stranger in our midst, or place, one could say, while we make others feel welcome. Space make place, according to Sarah Ahmed, and as such, we must be guided and the protectors of that space. Moreover, that space, referred to by bell hooks, should be looked upon as a site of resistance and rejuvenation. So it should be that space. The nature isle should be that space where we come after a hard day's work of the everyday to rejuvenate and start the battle again for the next day. That space, I believe, has no limit, is not limited to a geographical confined space, but one that is bundled up within one's roots and routes. In this cosmopolitan, globalized, technological, interconnected world. As such, no matter where you are, the type of cargo that you carry, who or what you are with, your belief system, your belief systems, your humanity will always embody the essence of the nature isle, rebranded as now. This remapping is based on the rebranding of the COD as now, based on the theory of the big idea. It is a society which recognizes its heterogeneity for a more democratic, equitable, and environmentally sustainable place within a technological, interconnected, globalized world. So right now we're going to digress a little bit and move across to Brenda, who's going to give us some more insight into this transformation of the rebranding of Dominica.
Good morning, everybody. 40 years ago, we were happy singing, "We have got it now," independence for our country. And I'm sure many of you all, 40 years ago, we were very happy singing, "We have got it now. We have got it. Independence for our country." And I am sure after 40 years, many people who were privileged enough to have been part of that independence remember those days of when they were fighting to get there and they finally achieved independence. Wikipedia tells us that independence is a condition of a nation, a country or a state in which its residents exercise self-governance. So we have got it. But now, this is 40 years later. And we have to start thinking of how we are going to take ourselves as an independent nation for independence 2.0. You see, everything is technology. So now it's independent 2.0. It's an upgrade. So if we think of ourselves, if we think of our own bodies, we were once small babies, we grew up to be teenagers, and then we started getting older. we became a little fatter, we became a more full person. And for those who have gracefully aged, probably using a stick to walk. Let us just imagine that as a country. Let us just make that link as a country. Because we started as a small nation, as Dominica, we became independent. We grew over the years, right? Good things happened, bad things happened. But this is the juncture at which we are at. And what and where do we go from here as a 40-year-old independent country? Now, what I'm going to do is, we saw a presentation from Henry about the big idea. And one of the things that we know for a fact is Nature Isle always goes with the word Dominica. Everywhere you pass in the world, and I've been to many places in the world, Dominicans, oh my God, this place is just Nature Isle. It's just such beautiful people. And when you think of the beauty of nature, when you think of where Dominica, how you position Dominica, we know for a fact that nature is something that is very vital. So in all of this smallness, we have something that is wonderful and beautiful. And why aren't we using that for us to develop ourselves, to create employment for ourselves, and to grow as a nation? And so a lot of times, this very small but beautiful country, we tend, when we think of how we can make it better, that we need to go out there. But Dominica, there are so many special things right here. And one of them happened to be Kudma, right? So many great cultural tools that we can use to develop ourselves. And when I started my master's on communication and culture, everything I have done over in my education has always been, I always felt I wanted to be something about God, that, I was doing something for God. But also, I always felt I had to put Dominica as the forefront. So when I would go around, making all my presentations, and many of my professors would line up because Brenda is presenting. And I always said, and would be screaming, Canada, Canada, and I would say, yes, Canada, but Dominica first, always. And many times, to force people to remember that Nature Isle, I would bring copies of the old atlas we had when we went to school, in primary school, and I would put an X on Dominica Republic and a big check mark on Dominica and say, that's the place. That's the real place. And I always say Dominica is one of the happiest places in the world. There are so many great things we have to sell as a nation, as a country, as just the natural beauty of this place. I do not think we know the gold mine that we are sitting on. And so I decided with my journey, I wanted to start with Kudma. And by now, I'm sure many people know that I had lost a nephew, Wayne Dirampel, and I was very sad because I saw another side of Dominica. I was always excited about Dominica, and then I saw and experienced another side of Dominica. And I felt I had to do something to be able to exhale and to be able to do something as a call of action in response to the young people of Dominica. And so Albert, being from Goodwill, decided, let's have a Goodwill reunion. And I said, okay, but we're not just going to meet and laugh and chat. We are going to have a reunion of substance. And we had a whole set of things we were doing. when we were talking and planning on Skype, we would sometimes start, okay, 3 o'clock is the meeting, all 12 o'clock in the night we're still talking. Because the first half of the time we were so excited about Dominica, and then we would start planning and planning and planning. And so that was part of that Kudma. And when we were planning this thing and working on this thing, I said, but wait a minute. This is a Kudma, but not a real Kudma, you know, because we were in Germany, we were in Holland, Dominica, Canada, all over the place. And I said, this is a Kudma, but it's being done virtually. And I started to think, and I say, Kud from Kudma, but we are doing it virtually. Net, it's the internet. And I say, wait a minute, this is KudNet. And I was so excited that we now had we had brought Dominica, we had bring in Kudma in a technological way, KudNet. And yes, when we think about Kudma, and I'm sure some of the young people at the back who probably are not so certain of what this Kudma is about, we would remember that many times people had to build their houses. And what would happen is, on a Saturday morning, a whole group of people would come together and they would discuss and, okay, I'm going to build that. I'm going to bring this. I'm going to bring the stones. Okay, I'm going to bring the cement. And the woman will say, okay, we will bring the food and we'll cook a broth. And people would come together and they would make that foundation. That was one less big money you had to put to get that house built. Today, how many of us are doing that? Maria should have been a wake-up call. Look down your streets. Look at your neighbor's house. How can we help to build and fix those houses together? That should have been a wake-up call. We didn't need anybody out there to do it because we had that cultural tool of Kudma. But Alwyn Bully made us aware that Kudma was starting to reduce because of religion. Everybody wanted the true church. And politics. Well, you're not in my party here, so I myself not helping to fix your house. Or you're not in my party, so I'm not helping to do this. How did we allow ourselves to make religion and politics not help us to continue to build our land? How did we allow that, Dominica? How? And so, with Kudma, the concept of Kudma, we know it also as Jeûner. You know, some people will call it Kudma, some people will call it Jeûner. And what the lady or somebody else is saying, we had a gender problem with the Kudma itself. Because if Mr. So-and-so was working his land, it was because Momsen looks at it differently. She says that so-and-so, Mr. So-and-so is doing his land, so that's a Kudma. It's important. It's a man. But the women who are there doing the same thing, it's, oh, they are just doing a little backyard gardening. And we know if we think about Dominica, there are some powerful women who run their land. Right? So while we are looking at the big idea and developing Dominica as the nature isle of the world, we have to remember to put aside that gender thing and say we are doing it together equally. Now, everything starts somewhere. We have that cultural tool, but we are also connected with our African ancestry. And Kudme also connects with a terminology we refer to as Ubuntu. And I'm sure many of you all have heard that term. Desmond Tutu tells us it is the essence of being human. One cannot exist in isolation. We are all interconnected. All of us. So it's whether you are the prime minister, whether you are the leader of the opposition, whether you are the gentleman here for the freedom, and all of us, whatever our political affiliation, guess what? We have one commonality. We are all interconnected. And the sons and daughters of the nature isle of the world. And so, how does Kudnet connect with this big idea? How does it connect with this big idea? We know for a fact that when Henry told us about all those different things that we can look at in terms of the tentacles of, all right, let's look at how we can use the nature isle for healthcare. Think about it. If we create Dominica as a nature isle for you to come and get health, everybody all over North America, wherever, they would come to our country for health care. You know what that would mean? Not only are we providing holistic health care, but our people are employed. Our people will have their jobs. Our people will be independent, can build their own homes, to have this form of dependency. Right? That's part of it. There are many of us in the diaspora. One of the things that he mentioned is we do not have a PhD botanist in Dominica. We know, though, that many of the Dominicans that are there are still doing a very good job, whether they have a PhD or not, because it doesn't take a PhD to do a good job. But we still need to have that research to help us to guide our way. And we have Dominicans abroad who we can connect with, who we can work with to help us to create a better Dominica. And so I come to the next part, the diaspora and the locals. This is a major problem. Major, major problem. We have more Dominicans abroad than at home. And so why, therefore, are we going on about those people in the diaspora and those people in the diaspora? We need to stop it. We live Dominica in our hearts every day. Every day I make a presentation. I make myself an ambassador for Dominica. Whether we are a cleaner, whether we are a prime minister, whether we are whatever we are in our life, we are ambassadors of our country. And so, we need to stop that diaspora thing. We need to stop that diaspora thing. And start looking at Dominica as we are thinking globally and acting locally. So we are still using our cultural tools to develop what we need to do. We have the problem of our digital divide. Because if we have to have a Kudnet, you cannot tell people, well, we want to plan this, and you cannot even access them. So we have to think about how do we create. Dominica is just 284, it is square miles. 294, whatever the number is. My God, I was a teacher, so I hope my convent practitioners are not hearing me. It's been a while. But the whole of Dominica should have free Wi-Fi. We should have that. This place is so small. We should have, everybody should have access to internet in Dominica. Right? So let us do something about that. So when we have to plan and we have to do those big ideas, you cannot say, you know what, I don't have the internet. I cannot find the internet. No, it's there for you. And it's available so that we can use the internet for us to develop ourselves with Dominicans at home and abroad. And so, it is time for us to say, to end. So I'm going to just pass on the mic a bit, 1 minute, to my husband.
Yeah, so in conclusion, I would like to quote Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We also send our prayers for this young lady who we just found out is in the ICU. And we pray that she recover speedily, some way, some shape or form. That's why we have the absence of the dog right now. But in conclusion, I would like to say that Ken Greenfield reminds us that choices not only defines us, but has consequences. And so in rebranding the COD to now, one must be cautious with our choices. Also, he argues that choice is a ready-made frame that is used to reject movements supporting social justice, civil liberties, or economic rights, since opponents can suggest that a people's current behavior is a reflective of their choice. We must acknowledge that the universe also is a gendered space, and as such, the earth is defined by its femininity. And by that, we must make women at the center, as we know that it is Mother Earth. Therefore, the future of the Nature Isle will be spearheaded by the empowerment of women and men as equals, recognizing our differences. I believe that language is not about what has been said, but rather what could have been said, that which was never said, and that which might have been heard. It is an in-between means of communication.
And so in conclusion, as we continue to think about rebranding Dominica as the nature isle of the world, and that is very exciting, you know, I don't know about you all, but to rebrand Dominica as the nature isle of the world. You know, they have been saying it in passing, people, we have our little nature isle of the Caribbean, which Caribbean? Of the world. And so we have done a little mapping of how we want to use technology because of the fact that so many Dominicans have migrated. But there are a lot of professional Dominicans who can help, and whether it's abroad or local. And so let us not get mad. You know, so-and-so over there, and is me that taking the guai. Because so-and-so over there is thinking very seriously about you. And taking the guai. When Maria was happening, we were there. I was working from home, and I was there helping Albert to forward the coordinates to people to know where the eye of the hurricane was. So never believe that you are not in our hearts. And so we have to connect with how we are going to think about rebranding the Commonwealth of Dominica, which is your COD, Commonwealth of Dominica, with the nature isle of the world, NOW. And it is now. Now. Don't delay. Think seriously. Think about the ideas you are going to think about, how you are going to rebrand that Dominica. And so I leave you with the words of Janine Marshallsus that says, if I encourage self-learning and imagination, I am giving flying lessons for the mind. And so, we hope together, Albert and myself, we hope that this presentation provides a new frontier that opens your mind to discover and explore something that is new and different. Thank you.